Hey, we're live. Welcome to a new week, everybody. A new week in the American Golden Age. And you're watching Dangerous with Coffee with Brian Cates. Well, I hope everybody had a good weekend watching all those interesting developments. And after the Bolton gets indicted, the indictments are coming, and all the same people with psychological problems are still saying it doesn't mean anything. It's not happening fast enough. The indictments are happening. You know, it's not enough. You know, that James Comey's been indicted, John Bolton's been indicted, and T.D. James has been indicted, and there's Cass Patel's literally doing live interviews where he's telling you there's more indictments coming. It's still all the same people up there. Oh my God! Oh my God! I wish something would happen. Something, anything happen, and I hope at this point people realize this is a psychological compulsion that these people have. All right, and it's got nothing to do with actual events. It's like the great thing about social media is that not only does it bring you into constant contact with some very smart people, it also brings you into constant contact with well, I'm going to try to be charitable here, not so very smart people, and maybe some people who have like psychological blocks that they need to work on. So a lot happened over the weekend. They blew up a submarine. Okay, yeah, these guys, they're they're trying to change tactics a little bit. So many of their boats are just getting blown up on the surface of the water. A submarine. Okay, so they tried a submarine, and that didn't work either. And Rand Paul's still out there. All these other guys saying you can't do that. You can't just summarily execute these drug dealers. You know, because this is illegal. We need to go back to the old war on drugs. We need to go back to just trying to stop them once they get it here. You know, when they reach it. And here's the thing: people haven't thought through. They have not thought this through. If we're easily finding these guys when they're on the water, what makes you think we weren't tracking them and we knew exactly where they were docking in the United States and transferring their drugs? What makes you think that wasn't happening? As a matter of fact, there was a post the other day. While I'm talking, I'm gonna go see if I can find it. I shared this with Colonel Roxanne Towner Watkins, okay, who is a really smart person. And this guy, I came across this. I came across this post from this guy saying, when we were in the Navy, when I was in the Navy, we used to see these ships and submarines. Yes, he's saying this is not the first time they spotted a submarine and they know what that submarine is doing. That submarine is basically smuggling drugs. And we would beg to be allowed to intercept them. We would beg, and we were told to ignore it. They were told to ignore it. And so this was common knowledge in the Navy. These guys would sit out there watching these drug boats, even including submarines, and watch these submarines traveling around, and they knew what they were doing, and they wanted to intercept them, and they were told, not our business, ignore it, let it pass by, unmolested. And that's exactly what they were doing. And I'm trying to find it. Okay. Here's Hegseth. I found Hegseth. I'm looking for the one guy that commented and said, we wanted to blow these boats up. Okay, here it is. I found it. So I'm gonna turn my screen sharing on here. Let me make sure I have the right one here now. Make sure I have the right one. Okay. Here is a post on X the other day that I saw, and this guy was saying, man, when I was a junior officer in the 1900s, we watched these go by and nobody doing anything but tracking them. and they begged to be able to do this. It took these decades, but we got there. Yeah, okay. So basically, what this guy is saying is that they've known for a long time now that it's not just speedboats. Let me back up a little bit here. Okay, they early on, before they had enough control, they were using boats for a lot of the smuggling they were doing. But by the early 2000s, they had such control of our government, they didn't need to try to smuggle it in or over sea. They had land corridors in Texas and New Mexico and California. They didn't need to be smuggling over the boats anymore. But you got to understand, a couple months ago, Pete Hegseth militarized that border, and he's got military forces on that border now, watching it. And so the land corridor has been closed to them for about 4 to 5 months now. They're not really getting anything through the land corridor. So they've gone back to using the ocean. And so we're in a situation now where, and of course, the drawback to this, they probably never thought this would happen, that Trump would be willing to do this and take the heat for it, start blowing, literally, because you can't use trucks and truck it in anymore. You're going to go back to the speedboats. Oh, but Trump wouldn't take the heat for that, if he tried to intercept our boats. And he's not really intercepting them. He's blowing them up. Okay. And they brought down pressure on him. You need to stop doing that. And so far, he's completely ignoring them. And what I want to draw out here is this has been going on for a long time. The fake war on drugs went on for more than 50 years. Completely fake. Nobody was really trying to stop the drugs for reasons that, if you follow Colonel Towner, who goes under Operation Gladio, and how a lot of these, and what we think of as separate national intelligence agencies are really just one thing under the control of a specific group of people. Okay. They are in the drug business. Drugs is one of their most profitable businesses, okay, of the intelligence agency, this one conglomerate intelligence agency thing, which has embeds in the CIA, MI6, whatever you call the German intelligence agency, French, Spain, Italian, they're all in on it, all right? They all have embeds in those agencies, okay? They're facilitating, not just creating fake terrorist groups and causing problems around the world so the military-industrial complex can come in and solve them, and everybody makes a lot of bank off the conflicts. Not just that. They do a shit ton of drug running, the drug trade. They do a lot of that. Human trafficking. They're basically a crime syndicate. That's what Colonel Towner calls it. It's a crime syndicate. And for over 50 years, we had a completely fake war on drugs because our country was under the control of this crime syndicate. Okay? And Trump has been quite enthusiastically rubbing their faces in it that they don't have that control of our government anymore. He is now robbing them of having any access to our resources. He's actually using the military against them, not for them now. And so back in the 1990s, like this guy was saying, we still watch all this traffic go by. We track them. Say, oh, look, another drug boat. Oh, look, another drug sub. It's a drug sub. The sub carrying drugs. Can we do anything in order to come down? Well, in order to come down. No, you can't do anything. So we watch it go by. Okay, now Trump gets in there, and for real now, okay? I've talked many times about the fact that I don't think Trump was really allowed to be a real, actual president in his first term. And he knew that. He knew that if he tried to be a real president, he'd have a really short presidency, okay? I think he understood that going in the first time. And would not be allowed to be a real president. But here he is. He came in as a real president this time, waving that sword around. Waving that sword around. I mean, symbology is very important to these people. Waving that sword around and then making that really weird, strange pronouncement. Standing next to that big cake just after he swung that Marine sword around at the inaugural ball that night when Melania was wearing that simply gorgeous to die for black and white dress. Trump says this from now on. Now, this is the night of January 2025. Right after he swung his sword around. He says, from now on, the United States of America will be a free and independent and sovereign nation. Now, a lot of people out there watching that, dude, what the heck? What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about, Willis? What do you mean from now on? We've been a free and independent and sovereign country since our founding. Okay, since the Constitution, we drove the British out of here. We drove the control of the noble class, the noble banking class. We drove them out of here over 250 years. What the hell are you talking about? From now on, we'll be a free and independent sovereign nation. You know, did you hit the wine a little bit early tonight, President Trump? What are you talking about from now on? 400 million guns in this country. What the hell are you talking about? Well, I think over the past 9 months, people have gotten a pretty good look at what he was talking about. I'm going to be going into it in this live stream. We talk about what all those secretive noble class banking families actually went. Where did they go? But while we had a fake war on drugs, the people who were actually in control of our country would not allow any real interception of the drug trade. They would not allow any real interception of the human trafficking trade. They would not allow anybody to stop all the wars they were starting around the world. They would not allow that. Every law enforcement agency was compromised in some, whether they had people directly embedded in it or they had control of the people giving orders to those agencies. There was no real war on drugs that was allowed. It wasn't allowed. There was no real war on human trafficking. That was not allowed. They do a showcase bust every now and then. Yeah, some of the small fry people, in it for themselves. But as far as the syndicate stuff, the crime syndicate that I'm discussing, you were never allowed to touch their shit. You weren't allowed to touch it. You had to sit back and watch it go by. And they were doing this back in the 1990s. Oh, look, another drug sub. Let it go. We're not allowed to touch that. Imagine growing up in New York City in a very wealthy family that came over here from Europe. And you understand all about how the old European nobility views itself and views its place in this world. Okay, but you're an American and you're proud to be an American and you love the American way of life and you love the way the American government is set up with a constitution. And then as you grow into a young man, you discover the truth. See, I believe Donald Trump woke up long before a lot of many other people did. And when he started hobnobbing with all the rich, elite, gentry, noble class and hanging out with them, and he gets an eye full of these people and how they're actually running things. I think he woke up long before most other people did, and he realized, holy shit. The world's actually run by a massive crime syndicate that stays in the shadows and runs the world via debt. And what are they doing? I mean, there is a scenario, I guess, where you could paint this where if these were noble, good people, that they would use their control for benign purposes, but that's not what's been happening. I mean, you wake up and realize they have this control from the shadows, and then you start to understand what they're doing with that control. Drug trafficking, human trafficking, they start conflicts, they start wars, they keep wars going, and then they lend money to both sides to increase the debt on both sides and to increase the control of both sides. And they keep these conflicts going endlessly while they make greater and greater profits. And they're extracting more and more resources from those regions, which is something I'm getting into from a thread that I just did about an hour ago. I started it about an hour ago. I actually finished it about 20 minutes ago. But we're going to get into this. The whole point of modern international politics, where they basically created almost every international organization, the entire diplomatic class, okay, that's supposedly going around serving the interests of their nations, of their individual nations from which they come, and they're trying to keep the peace and stop the wars. What a sick joke, okay? It's all being exposed. And whether you like him or not, whether you agree with everything he's doing or not, Donald J. Trump is a key player in this, all right? And exposing what they've been doing, how they've been running the world. And he's literally prying their fingers off like a control lever. Like, best way to do it. Okay, pretend this is the world's control lever, okay? And they got their fingers on it. And Donald Trump is literally prying their fingers. Oh, he's prying their fingers off the control levers one by exposing them and forcing them to back off of the wars they've been starting. He's putting a serious damper on their human trafficking. You know for a fact he's putting a serious damper on their drug trade. And they literally cannot get nearly the amount of drugs into this country that they used to, because he's closed that land corridor right to them. He's forcing them to go back to using boats, and he's blowing up the boats. And there's some interesting questions that are going to come out about why Venezuela hasn't approached, because they say these guys are from Venezuela. I question that. If they're not some part of, like in the James Bond movies, what Smersh was? Smersh was not a state actor. Smersh. What was the name of that other one? There's several different, they're not really state actors. It's a transnational evil spy group that sells itself to the highest bidder. Okay. And that's who James Bond ends up fighting in most of his movies and the books. He's fighting these guys. They're not really stuck to one nation like Russia. From Russia with love with the Russians. He starts going up against Blofeld. Blofeld was a transnational guy. Okay, he wasn't really a representative of one country. And one of the things I think what's going to be coming out in the coming months is the people who are now frantically having to resort to boats and subs on the ocean to keep their industry going, their drug trafficking industry, from which they make massive profits. The people who are doing that do not belong to one nation. It is a transnational criminal syndicate. We're going to come up with a fun name for it. I'm going to start working on an acronym right now. But these things are coming out. Trump is exposing this, okay? And then they don't know what to do. They've never been in this position. They were allowed, to run a fake war on drugs for 50 years, and they got comfortable doing that. And I think they understood, because they failed to stop Trump and he came back. I think they understood coming in that he was going to cause massive problems for them. But even then, after he won that election, back almost a year now, back in November 2024, even after he won that election. I don't think they had any real idea just how badly he was gonna wreck them, and he is wrecking. Spectre, thank you, Dwayne. Spectre. Smosh is one of them, and Smosh actually seems to be more like a Russian thing. But Spectre was transnational, okay? And I think that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a transnational organization. It may be made up of people from some people from Colombia and Venezuela and Brazil and Guatemala and Mexico, okay, but it's transnational. It's not related to just one nation state or one state actor. It's a transnational crime syndicate. And what Trump is doing, blowing up these boats, is he's sending a message. Okay, this is not the military anymore. The land corridor is closed to you, and you try to send this shit in here overseas, or we're not even gonna bother arresting you. It's gonna blow your shit up. Okay. So that's what's been going on lately. And the other day, this sub blew up, and I thought that comment is from that guy that used to be in the Navy in the 1990s. That's how fake that war on drugs actually was. They were watching all this traffic go by, and even in submarines, and they were told, "Don't touch it, don't touch it." Remember, I've been telling you there's a hidden world out there, and you're not allowed to see it. It's the literal silent war. I think a while back, even under Obama and under Trump the first time, and under Biden, there are patriots in our government still. Even before Trump came back the second time, there are patriots in our government. There are patriots in almost every government, by the way. I really believe in the sovereign alliance stuff that Boning Bright and some other people talk about. I believe that's real. You have patriots in Russia, China. You have patriots in Israel. You have patriots in the United Kingdom. They want this freaking syndicate out of their country. They want their country back. Okay? And we're not the only ones where they've got patriots and traitors, literally elbow to elbow in the same government agencies in the United States and Canada and Mexico, in the United Kingdom and Ireland, in Australia. I mean, you have people who understand what's going on and are not happy about it, and they want to get these literal snakes out of their country so they can have their country back. I call it the Sovereign Alliance. And Trump is the head of the American affiliate of the Sovereign Alliance now. And he's having amazing success, okay, and prying their fingers off of some of the levers of power. And he's doing amazing things in the last 10 months, forcing things out into the open that they managed to cleverly either disguise it or hide it behind the curtain. And Trump is either causing the illusions to fade away so people can actually see, oh my God, that guy's naked, or it was behind the curtain and nobody can see it. And he's forcing it out into the open, okay? And the world is watching. And one of the things that people have come to realize that Donald Trump is currently involved in right now is the fact that the war on drugs for so many years was a farce. It was an actual farce. It wasn't real. And now that it is real, it's been very illuminating. It's been quite educational to watch who very loudly is telling Trump to stop doing this stuff with the real war on drugs. Go back to the way things were done during the fake war on drugs. These same people that were telling him, stop the tariff madness, stop the trade reset, stop doing all this radical revolutionary stuff. We're Congress. Let us handle it. Let us do our jobs, okay? Have you noticed how freaking useless the Congress has been ever since Trump came back in January? You notice that? I have a theory. I know it's going to blow some people's minds, For a long time, you see the social media influencers out there who don't understand the first thing about what's going on. I don't understand why Congress isn't helping Trump advance his America First agenda. Oh, I understand quite well why the Congress is not helping Donald Trump advance his agenda. I understand quite well why they won't do that. Because about half of our Congress belongs in prison because they've been taking money from the table. Many of them know that the elections that they won were rigged. They helped participate in the rigging of those elections. So many of them are taking bribes. They're taking. You think if you think that Menendez creep from New Jersey was some kind of one outlier or something, they found literal gold bars in the guy's closet. Okay. If you think that guy was an outlier, let me tell you, about half of our Congress should be in prison right now just for shit like that. They are half of them at least. I'm not saying there aren't any patriots in there, but even some of the people that you may think of being patriots might start having their own agenda on the side. Okay. But I think about half of our Congress belongs in prison. Yes, Senate and House. Half of them belong in prison for taking bribes, basically. And their real job, okay, I'm not talking about what their publicly professed job. I'm talking about their real job now. Their real job has always been to hide the corruption from you and pretend they are engaging in oversight of a government that was actually under the control of a foreign shadow government. Their job was to pretend that they, as civilian lawmakers that we elected and sent up there, that they were on the job, they were on the ball, they were minding the story. And basically, that is not true. That is not what they've been doing for the last 100 years or so. They are a front group for a shadow government, much of which is foreign based. Okay, that's what they are. So, no shit, they don't feel particularly compelled to help Trump institute an America First agenda. Understand? Half of them belong in prison. So yeah, I don't look to Congress for any help on anything. The only time most of them make noises now is when they're complaining about something Trump has done. Oh my God, don't do this. Don't try. Don't drop a bunker buster on the Fordell planting around without notifying us first and getting our okay. Okay. Oh my God, don't militarize our border and put the military down there and shut off that land corridor to all the drug mules and all the drug traffic and the trucks and stuff. My God, man, you have to come and get permission from us in Congress to do that. My God, man, don't start blowing up boats, in the Southcom region when they're still trying to smuggle in these drugs that are killed like 350,000 Americans since 2005. I'm not exaggerating that. You can look that up. 350,000 plus Americans have died from these fucking drugs since 2005. That's a fact, okay? And they're like, oh my God, man, don't blow those boats up. You got to do this the right way. You have to come and ask us for permission. Over and over and over again, whenever Donald Trump does something, they go, you didn't say, Mother, may I? You did not come to us and ask our permission. You are a tyrant. You are running amok. You're doing all this stuff and you're not asking, and you're certainly not getting Congress's permission to do this. Well, I'll tell you, I'll come out and tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why Donald Trump doesn't go to the U.S. Congress with his hat in hand and ask them for permission as he is prying the damn fingers of the shadow government off of the United States. I'll tell you why he doesn't go to Congress and ask their permission. Because they're in on it as a body. They are in on it. They're not going to help him do any of this. And he knows that. He knows they're not going to help him do any of this. So he's doing all this radical stuff. He came back and he's determined to be a real president this time. He knew that if he tried to do a lot of the stuff he's done the last 10 months, if he tried that in the first term, oh my God, that would have been a very short presidency. I'll put it that way. A lot of people think that just because you're president now, you took the oath, they have to do what you say. I mean, I had people telling me this when he left in 2021. He climbed into the copter and he left. He's a pussy. All he had to do was send in the tanks. They would have to do what he said, right? He's the president. He could have stayed if he wanted to. All he had to do was give the order. And I'm like, man, you really don't understand how this works. If he'd ordered the tanks to roll into the streets of Washington, D.C. back in December, January 2021, you really don't understand what would have happened if you're going to sit there and tell me he should have declared martial law. He should have federalized the police, federalized the National Guard. He should have stayed in there. He should have done that in 2021. You don't understand jack shit. We wouldn't be on this amazing journey with Donald Trump right now if he'd done what you were telling me he should have done in November, December of 2020, and January of 2021. If he'd done what people were telling me he should have done. Our journey with this amazing man into the Great Awakening, into a Golden Age, would not be happening right now. It would not. I don't care how that makes you feel emotionally. And I understand that's what I was dealing with. It hurt. It hurt me to watch that man get in that chopper and leave. It hurt me. Because I went to January 6th. I was hoping against hope there would be some miracle to stop this, okay? To stop, Joe Biden or whoever that was from coming in and, having to go through at least a 4-year Joe, knowing he was a criminal, okay? Knowing that Joe Biden was coming in, watching that guy climbing that chopper. I understand a lot of this was just emotional venting. It hurt that they stole that election and then he left. And then we watched what they put him through for 4 years. But he's back now. But people have to understand this. He can do what he's doing now. He can be a real president now. He couldn't the first time. He was severely limited in what he could do in that first time. But now, coming back, enough of the country was awake and ready for him to begin doing what needed to be done. And he is doing it. And man, is he doing it. And, of course, people complain about process. Well, it would have been smarter for him to do it this way or that way. Okay, yeah, we can argue about process, but he's getting it done. For the most part, he's getting it done. It's not as fast as I would like. Yeah, welcome to the real world. I'm taking another sip, and now I am more dangerous. So here's where I'm going with this. I'm ready to read this thread that I just did this morning. When you are attempting to wake the world up, not just the United States, okay, these people have been running probably I'll say 24, but it may be more like 36. They run a lot of the developed nations of the world. They got control via debt, via lending money, mostly for military conflicts that their international intelligence conglomerate went out and created. I've talked many times about how people have this really weird idea. Okay, so I'm going to lose some of you. People have this weird idea that radical extremist Islam is an organic thing. And it hasn't been since 1900. You go back and you study this, you look at this, because the programming tells you that Islam is such an evil, terrible, rotten, horrible religion that if left on its own, organically, it will produce terrorists and it will produce people who want to exploit a terrorist Islamic jihad revolution to the rest of the world, take it over. They really believe that, okay? what you will find out if you study the actual history of Islam is that it was true, yes, they did engage in a lot of jihad. They did engage in a lot of wars of conquest. All of that had ended by the 1880s. It had ended. Islam had moderated itself. Only in some places did you have small, tiny pockets of truly radical people saying, it's our job to kill all the infidels. It's our job to convert them and kill them and take over the world. 97% of Islam is moderated and no longer believe that. I'm telling you, go back and look. So what happened is, in the early 1900s, the same people who were the subject of the threat I'm about to read to you decided it would be very useful monetarily for them to create instability in certain corners of the world that they could then go in there and exploit by lending money to both sides in the conflicts they could create. So, what happened is, about 1913, British intelligence agencies, under the control of the people that I'm talking about, created the Muslim Brotherhood. And an amazing thing when you study the Muslim Brotherhood and where it came from, you will find that the people who were really responsible for creating it were not Muslims. Wow. Okay, so they're not Muslims, and these people went on a mission when they founded the Muslim Brotherhood. We need to go find the most radical, far out extremist pockets, isolated pockets of Islam. And we need to begin fanning those flames with our money and our support. And we need to cause them to rise and grow and expand to where we can create enough destabilization in that region so we can go in there and financially exploit it. And you know what? That's exactly what they did. Now, concurrent with their establishing the Muslim Brotherhood, they also established this other funky thing that and this is where I'm going to lose the other half of you. These same people now, same people that created the Muslim Brotherhood, created the modern Zionist movement. Oh yeah, I mean, you ponder the implications of that. On one side, we got these people over here. We're going to go find the most radical extremist elements of their religion, and we're going to blow them up until we can make use of them to start wars and conflicts and terrorist attacks with. And then we're going to send in our military industrial complex to maintain the peace. Same time they're doing that, and creating the modern Zionist movement. Did you miss the understanding just open up for some of you about what you've been watching all your lives in that region? I've been telling people there's a reason I don't pick a side between Hamas and the Palestinians leadership. And I don't pick a side with Israel, the secular government there. The reason I don't pick a side is I'm on humanity's side. I understand who controls both sides, who is bankrolling, funding, and increasing the debt and control of both sides. And Donald Trump is getting in there and he's really screwing up everything for them. And here's what you got to understand. These people are focused on getting more and more control. And you get more and more control of your debt. And nothing, you didn't pay attention here, nothing creates debt as fast as war. Conflict. Nothing. So if you're on an agenda to gain more and more world control, what you really want to do is you want to be creating more and more conflicts. Have you noticed what Donald Trump has been doing for the last 10 months? Every try to get some shit started. Here comes this guy with a big honking bucket of water, and he puts fire out. And at the same time, he's been cutting off all their other sources of revenue. They're not getting money from the drugs. They're not looting our treasury anymore. They're not looting the hundreds of billions of dollars, or whatever what they were getting out of our treasury every year. They're not getting that money anymore. Okay, he's cutting off their sources of revenue one by one. They need these wars. They got to have these conflicts. He's putting all the fires out. Oh, it's so sad. Oh, it's so sad. Now he's talking about getting rid of the IRS and eliminating personal income taxes because he can do that because the tariffs are going to pay for everything. Once he's done cutting this government, this fake government that they spent 100 years inflicting on us, endlessly expanding. Once he cuts that government down to size, he's gonna fund it all with tariffs. That scares the living shit out of these people because it means that they won't be able to use their debt to control us as a nation anymore. So let's go into it. Yeah, my brother left me a message here. Thanks, my brother. Oh, thank you, just in case. I appreciate that. I actually don't watch the chat while I'm streaming because I find it's distracting. I'm trying to keep my train of thought, but I do appreciate all of you that are watching on Rumble and that are leaving comments and are watching on YouTube and on X.com. Okay, here's the it says remove. I actually want to bring it back up so I can see it again. Okay, give me a second. Make sure I'm on the right page here. All right, I'm still on that thing with the sub. Good thing I checked. All right, let's add this to the stage here. Yeah, I realize right now you actually can't see the videos there. I think I have to go to the page live and click on the videos for you to see it. But let's just read it before you watch the video. Okay. Here's why I'm going with this stream. I want you to consider this. What Donald Trump is actually in opposition to. Who is he fighting? People call it by various names. The shadow government, the blob, the crime syndicate, the deep state. There's a lot of names people use it for, but you have to understand it's truly international. It's a truly international entity. And a lot of people, they don't go all the way with who this is. They just say it's the Jews. It's the Jews. You're talking about the Jews, aren't you? You're talking about the Jewish backers. Listen, the people I'm discussing existed hundreds and hundreds of years before the Zionists did. They created the Zionists, okay? Get it right. Don't stop short. Keep going. So, what if... Okay, that's not actually the first... that's not actually the first... Well, okay, that is the first one. Okay, all right. What if they updated the Noble Lord versus Serfs game for modern audiences? Okay, to fool as much of the public into believing they live in a constitutional republic or a democracy, when in fact they do not. They actually live inside a noble. So you can see the first video is a noble class banking family representative handing a king a great big bag of money while a poor serf dressed in rags comes in and begs them for some consideration, and they laugh at him. Okay, that's a noble class banking family who controls the king by lending him vast sums of money and getting the king into debt to their friend. A lot of people in the reading of history, they think King George, you know, like when we were fighting King George III for American independence, he was like some independent entity. Well, no, King George was a front man. He was the one that was behind him. They supported him. They gave him money, and the kingdom was in an incredible amount of debt to them. And a lot of what King George was doing in the United States, these were desperate measures where he was trying to raise revenue because he owed these sons of bitches vast sums of money that he was trying to pay back. So that's what motivated. I'm not saying I agree, with what King George was doing. He never should have taken the money in the first place and never should have ended up in debt to them. But he was trying to pay his debts off. And it's real fun to get the money, but the more money you take, the more you owe them. And the more you owe them, the more control you have handed them. When they come to you and say, now you will do this for us, or we will charge you a higher interest rate, or we will not lend you any more money and your kingdom will be bankrupt. You must do what we tell you. This is how they gain control. So that was back in like the medieval times. We see a rich banker in fine robes and a king with a crown on his head. And basically, this is the noble lord versus serf system, where the wealth is extracted from the serfs via taxation. They are kept at a base is taxed over the subsistence level. Everything they produce is taxed, and it's transferred to the government. And then the government is taking its cut, of course. The local government is taking its cut, the national leaders. But the vast amount of that wealth is transferred to the banking family. That's how this system worked back then. I call it the noble lord versus the serf king. So what they've done is they've updated it for modern audiences. All they've done is they've updated it for modern audiences, okay? It's still the same scheme, except instead of a royal banking family dressed in robes, you get a banker dressed in a three-piece suit. Instead of a king with a crown on his head, you have your president, your member of Congress, your governor, your mayor taking your money. Updated for modern audiences. Okay. So, how did the noble lord class of families exert total control over the kings of the past? Why did the king always have to do what the noble class of banking families told him to do? What happened when the king didn't want to do what the noble lord banking families were telling him to do? Kind of obvious what would happen if they told him to do something and he got uppity. He said, no, I don't think I'll do that. Kind of obvious what would happen. Why did holding power over a kingdom's debts give certain noble class families immense power over entire kingdoms? Well, I mean, the question kind of explains itself. But I'm going somewhere with this, okay? The old way of doing things, the old noble lord versus serf paradigm. The bankers are funding the kingdom. The king owes them a vast amount of money, and the serfs are the ones that are providing the revenue. And to extract the maximum amount of resources and revenue from the serf class, they had to be kept at a bare subsistence level. That's an important point. Now, what if, well, just go with me here, this is a thought experiment. What if back in the 1700s and 1800s, these noble class banking families that were ruling over entire kingdoms quite openly at that time, what if they read the handwriting on the wall and they could see where things were headed with all of these constitutional republics springing up and democracy springing up, and they can't just go in there and get control of a monarch or a royal family anymore by lending them vast sums of money? what if they're going to have to adjust their strategies and methods to maintain their control? Okay, yeah, I think these guys saw this coming by the end of the 1700s and into the 1800s. All these banking families in Europe were going, okay, we're going to have to adjust our methods here because um, America kicked us out. Okay, King George was trying to raise us money to pay us back. They had a rebellion. They had a revolution. They threw us out. How are we going to get back in there and exert control over the country? We can't do it because they don't have a king now, of course. They have a Congress. So let's sit down. Let's huddle up, guys. All these noble class banking families, super wealthy banking families. Let's put our heads together. How are we going to get control back of the United States of America? Through our money, through our lending, and building debt, and to get our control back. How are we going to go about doing that? So I'm convinced by the end, at least by the end of the 1700s, they were already planning this. They were already sitting down and mapping out how they were going to do it. So, what might a modern day version of the noble banking class running multiple nations from the shadows look like? What would that look like? How would they go about creating a situation where they have total iron fisted control via the massive debts they hold over entire nation states, but instead of being at the noble court, the king's court, and being his key advisors and being out in the open like before, this time, and they're building their debts and maintaining their iron fisted control, giving the orders to these national leaders. This time they're staying pretty much out of sight. And they're putting out puppets to do their bidding for them. You know, what what do you think that would look like? Would it not look like a lot of what you're seeing around the world today? A key component of the noble class banking families controlling the king to extract the maximum amount of resources from the serf class to build their wealth while maintaining the kingdom and an ever increasing amount of debt. The key component of that was extracting the maximum amount of resources every year from the serf class via taxation. Now, have you noticed anything about the rise of taxes in many Western countries over the last 100 years, especially in the USA? And here we have the serf taking, and he's begging to be able to keep more of it, but the king is demanding that he stays at just the bare subsistence level. Everything else that he produces in excess of that subsistence level must be handed over to the state. And then what do you think the state does with the vast amount of resources and wealth that it extracts from its serf class every year? It gives it to the backers. The money flows both ways. Why is Donald J. Trump suddenly making all this noise about getting rid of personal income taxes and a lot of other kinds of taxes and even abolishing the IRS? Why is he doing that? Why is Trump pointing out so many cities around this country are using low funds as an excuse to let criminals roam around free? Isn't that exactly what you see in North Carolina as more and more of a national spotlight gets put on gets put on these cities where there's we always knew there was a revolving door justice system, but man, the spotlight that's on North Carolina recently, it's insane. Every other day, they're putting some social media influencer is putting up a new post. And I know I've been criticizing social media influencers a lot lately, but they do some good things. They're highlighting these cases. Here's a guy with 37 arrests, tried to rape a woman in the park. He's out on bond already. Oh, he's out on cashless bail. Here's another guy has 18 arrests, including several for violent crimes. He just assaulted somebody on a subway. He's out already, okay? And they're putting a spotlight on this. Donald Trump he's got the national spotlight on this. He's taking control of the national spotlight away from them. I hope you noticed that. They used to pick and choose, the fake news media did, and according to what they were told by their real owners. They decided what became a national story and what did not. That was where a large part of their brainwashing and propaganda control, that's where it came from. They were able to keep people in the dark because they're not just showing you fake shit, they're hiding the real shit from you. And what Donald Trump has been doing, he's kept the spotlight on this for several weeks now. The fact that there's something floating around in my mouth there. The fact that they could have stopped all this crime in any of these cities at any time, but they won't do it. They won't stop the crime. And he's putting pressure on them. And now these local people in Charlotte, North Carolina, Chicago, Portland, Oregon, and all these other cities, they're being forced to come out and say, well, it's a money issue. You just don't have the money. You say you passed a new law, great. No more cashless spell. But look, we ain't got any money to hold more of these people in our jails. This is going to put a burden on the system. We are living at a bare subsistence level. I mean, however much wealth or resources our state or our county or our city is generating every year, much of those resources and wealth and revenue goes elsewhere, goes to somebody else. And we're at a bare subsistence level here right now. So every time the spotlight's on them now, you're going to see more of this. They're going to come out and claim we just don't have the money to implement cashless bail and keep all these people locked up or put them in a mental hospital. We don't have enough jails. We don't have enough hospitals. We ain't got any money to build anymore. Okay? And they send these guys out here, these fat cats in their expensive clothes and their perfectly correct hair to boble to you. Oh, we could do this. We'll just raise your taxes. And let's listen to this Grok video that I made here. Okay.
We're broke. There's no money for that.
Yeah, they come out and tell you. They come around and tell you this. You passed Illinois law, great, but we're broke. We don't have any money for that. Sorry. And people are going to start asking the questions. If you look at how much money and resources are extracted from the citizens of that city, that town, that state, there should be enough money to do this. Where's all the money going? Where's all the money really going? It's not just at the federal level. Trump and Elon Musk, God bless them, they showed you from March to the end of July where a lot of your federal tax money is ended up. This is coming to the state level soon. They're going to find out where a lot of your state level taxes and the money, where that actually been going. So this idea is fostered through propaganda and brainwashing and conditioning in the minds of the citizens. Yes, it's terrible that they can't seem to keep all these violent criminals locked up, but things are tough all over, and I understand the city just doesn't have any money to fix this. So they have to do cashless bail, and they have to do these other things. We have to put up with these shuffling zombies on the streets because there's no money. And people buy into this now. They buy into it. It's not true. And they're going to start to wake up to the fact that's not true. Now, what if, okay, just go with me here. Remember, this is a thought experiment. What if many states and counties in the U.S. are being deliberately kept running just above bankruptcy level as the citizens there serfs in actuality, are being looted and exploited as their puppet political leaders extract the wealth and resources and send it out of the state, even out of the country, via money laundering schemes. Who are they sending the money to, really? Picture the national leader as, and this in an instance, I know the way I made it and the way I explained it the first time, I'm explaining it as the rich noble class banker handing the bag of money to the king, okay, and get him in debt to control him. Okay, and he does that's the same way in the modern example. Now I want you to picture this the other way. That's why I did this as far as the modern day example. It it looks like the the national leader is handing the money to the banker. You see, in the ancient example, you can't really tell who's handing who the money because it works both ways. Remember, the banker lends the kingdom money to get control, and then he tells the kingdom what's what, and then the kingdom is now under a debt to him, and they have to pay him back, and that's where most of the wealth for the banking families comes from. Okay, in the modern example, it works the same way. The banking families lend the money to the national leader, and then the national leader every year has to make a payment, ever increasing payment to the banking family, ever increasing amount of money extracted from the serf class to try to stay afloat, to stay above bankruptcy. So picture the national leader as handing off the tax money to the noble class banking family representative this time. The money, your money is flowing both ways. It's going both ways. So President Donald J. Trump appears to be using the crime issue to throw the national spotlight on something that's very important. Now that the noble family banking class puppet leaders who've been winning rigged elections are having to explain why they have deliberately crafted a revolving door justice system. It's been going on for a long time now. Those bodies have been stacking up in places like Chicago for a long time now, decades even. But they never had this kind of pressure put on them to explain why they are allowing this. So now that the noble family banking class puppet leaders who've been winning rigged elections have to explain why they have deliberately crafted a revolving door court system, what excuse are they starting to proffer to everyone? We ain't got no money for that. Now, are they telling the truth? And if not, why not? And let's play the Grok video that I created here. I love the fact that when I asked Grok to make a politician claiming that they don't have any money for this, okay, they put a guy in a Savile Row suit and they gave him perfectly coiffed hair, which is exactly what I wanted. It's what they do when they come out and they have to bobo and coo to the cameras after some new body ended up stacked up in their morgue, and they have to explain why this had to be continued, why this had to be allowed to continue.
This city is barely scraping by. We can't afford to hold violent repeat offenders. This city is barely scraping by. We can't afford to hold violent repeat offenders.
Sure, John. But this is the excuse. They're literally being forced to make this excuse. Now, Donald Trump and Scott Bessent just came out and said there was a $200 billion surplus. This is the second month in the last 10 the federal government ran at a surplus. Now, you have to understand, that is not supposed to be happening. It's not even supposed to be within the realm of possibility that the government could be running at a surplus yet. It's not supposed to even be possible. I guarantee you, if we had that cackling witch Kamala Harris and that weirdo Tim Walz in the White House right now, the government would not be running with a surplus. And any month, you have to understand why members of Congress like Rand Paul, why the entire financial expert class, which is owned by these same people I've been talking about, why all the people out there with vested interest in the old system loudly screamed that Trump and Bessent and Lutnick had lost their freaking minds, okay, trying to do a trade reset / tariff revenue policy. It was insane. They were going to literally wreck everything. And, well, yes, in a sense, that's true. Doing the trade reset and introducing that tariff revenue, it is wrecking something. Okay, believe you me, it's wrecking something. And all these people are running around lying about it. Like I think Rand Paul came out the other day. I think it was Rand Paul. It might have been Matthew. Kentucky's got a real problem, and saying that the tariff revenues are wrecking Kentucky farmers. The revenues, the tariff revenues, tariff that Trump has set, it's literally destroying Kentucky farms. This is bad. This needs to stop. Well, all those people were screaming for Trump to stop and not do this, and now for the second time in 10 months, the government had $1 billion surplus. That's not supposed to be happening. If, like I said the other day on X.com, well, I hope you all follow me. I hope you follow my Substack too and subscribe. The butthole pucker factor of the noble class banking families right now has got to be off the charts. They were convinced nobody would ever be able to get rid of the massive debt or the increase of the debt. Not only are you never going to be able to pay off the massive national debt, you're not even going to get within yodeling distance of being able to get that government to run at a surplus. It's impossible. You'll never do it. And now what? They're watching Trump do it. You understand? They're watching him do it. And they can't believe it. This is exactly what they were afraid of. And I believe that's why they tried to blow his head off in July in Butler in 2024. Well, let's go on. So, why are taxes so high and why are you paying them up the wazoo if it's becoming increasingly apparent the elected leaders cannot or will not provide for the public safety, which is a manifest failure of one of their chief responsibilities. There was a social contract between citizen and state, and citizen, the local government, state government, the federal government. I will pay my taxes and you will meet your responsibilities to the citizens who pay those taxes. And the public safety is one of the biggest things. Building the roads, the infrastructure, but also public safety is one of the major responsibilities of the state. And we've had this intolerable situation for decades now, in many of these cities. With the faces changed, Lori Lightfoot, Brandon Johnson, the faces changed. It doesn't matter. The system that is in place cannot or will not provide for the public safety. They will not enforce the law. They will not stop the crime. So what Americans are waking up to is this. It actually doesn't cost all that much to fund the government. It especially won't cost that much once Trump is done with it. And most government services are unnecessary bloat, which is something that the current government shutdown is demonstrating to everybody. The country did not end when the government shutdown happened. The federal government. Because about 80% of what the federal government is doing, ever since these bastards I'm talking to you about, these noble class banking families, reasserted control, they spent a lot of time positioning their personnel and their resources, and they pulled the trigger in 1913. They got us off of the constitutional government, and they spent over 100 years expanding a very, very unconstitutional federal government with while hiding behind the curtain and claiming it was the constitutional government, but it's not. It's about the furthest thing from a constitutional government you can imagine. And 80% of what they now have the government doing had no freaking business doing in the first place. That includes the Department of Education, the IRS, and about half the other federal agencies out there. Okay, so what people are discovering is, wow, the government's been shut down however many days it's been shut down, 17, 18 days. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I don't even pay attention at this point. But the Americans are waking up to the fact that the government is shut down and everything's fine. Just essential services, which is what the government's supposed to be doing in the first place. All this extracurricular shit, the government should never have been involved in the first place. People are going to see, wow, Donald Trump actually can support a much smaller federal government just on tariff revenues alone. Because this government that we've grown up with all our lives is 80% of it is doing stuff it shouldn't be doing, and it's extra constitutional, and we need to get rid of it. It had to take the government shutdown to show this to everybody, that the country still runs fine if you shut down 80% of this unconstitutional bloat. I'm all for it. So that's the first thing. It actually doesn't cost that much to fund the government. Most government services are unnecessary bloat, and this is what the current government shutdown is showing a lot of people. Point two, most of the money and resources extracted from the states is being sent elsewhere to somebody else. And the states and counties are being deliberately kept at just the subsistence level. That's on purpose. Donald Trump keeps talking about a golden age. Let me tell you why he says that. He understands what's been happening. And he understands what this country will look like in just a few years when many of these counties and states are able to keep all of that wealth and resources that they generate every year. And it's not sent overseas to some fucking banking cabal. He understands what a decade of that will make America look like. Okay, where all this stuff and money laundering and extraction of wealth, where the people are being kept deliberately just above subservience, okay, starvation, okay. He knows what it's going to look like. He has a vision of what America will look like in about 10 years. It's 2025. 2035, if Trump gets everything he wants, I guarantee you, in 10 years, you will not recognize this country. You have no idea the massive amount of theft that's been going on your entire life, and how these cities and states are being kept deliberately just above bankruptcy level, because most of that money and revenue is being stolen and laundered. The point three, if government actually doesn't need to be that big and cost that much, where in God's name has most of the tax money been going? And this is where Trump is taking everybody by the hand, leading them through it. Okay, Brandon Johnson tells you, he's coming out having to explain why the local government can't get a handle on the violent crime problem, why the machine Brandon Johnson came up within, it's been running that city for decades. He's having to come out and explain why they can't get the crime under control. And they're going to keep saying two things. We don't have enough gun control. We don't have enough money. Not enough gun control, not enough money. He's going to get them to repeat that over and over again. And then it's going to drop the bomb. It's going to show them your elections are rigged. Your elections are rigged by a foreign entity. All these people that are part of this machine who's been running the freaking city for decades are taking orders from a foreign entity. They have literally for decades that you've been alive and paying your taxes, they've been looting your city and keeping it just above bankruptcy. They've been doing this on purpose. And the reason they don't want to spend any money on criminal justice, the reason they want a revolving door court system is because they want that. They wanted that. They want the fear. They want the terror. They want you to live under that cloud. It makes you easier to control. It's deliberate. It's on purpose. So where in God's name has most of the tax money been going? I tell you, when people find this out, when they discover the answer to this, it's going to be quite surprising for many of them. So the old, we gotta get started on the other one yet. Okay, the old Europe noble class of extravagantly wealthy banking families never went anywhere. They're still there. Did you know that? They never went anywhere. 1,200, 1,000, 800, 500, 300 years ago, they openly ruled over kings. They openly controlled the kings and the king's courts with their money. They were doing that openly, okay? They never went anywhere. They just changed tactics. They had to change strategies and methods. That's all. But they're still there. So the old Europe noble class of extravagantly wealthy banking families never went anywhere. They just receded into the shadows and now exert their control by other means. So this is the system Donald J. Trump is in the process of destroying. It is removing their control one finger at a time. Ow! Oh God, that hurt. Oh, it's prying their fingers off of the American affiliate. He's taking it over at the hostile takeover. He's taking their control away here in America. He is removing their control. He fully intends to remove the math that gave them all of that control in the first place. So, what if a large part of the Great Awakening involved waking up the citizens of many nations to the fact that their national leaders do not serve them, but someone else instead? And exposing this rotten shadow government and is destroying it. I believe this is what Trump is doing. He's exposing it, and by exposing it, you destroy it because these people have to stay in the dark. They love the dark. They live in the dark. They cast their illusions to hide themselves in the dark. And when you shine a spotlight on them, they can't take it. They can't keep the illusions going that allows them to hide themselves in what they've been doing. So a large part of what Donald Trump, I think, is taking as his life's mission is exposing this rotten shadow government, destroying it. He's pulling back the curtain and showing the world how it has been, and is in many places still being ruthlessly exploited and suppressed, kept at a bare subsistence level by carefully manufactured design. What happens when all the serfs who didn't know they were serfs suddenly start waking up? I believe you have a golden age. That's what I believe. So right now, the American affiliate, so long under their control, okay, let me say that again. Right now, the American affiliate, so long under their control, is now in direct and open rebellion against this shadow government I've been describing. They're desperate to get their full control back. Absolutely. They've lost control of not all of the American affiliate, but I'd say right now they probably only have about 40% control left, and they're desperate to get back to 100%. And these people constantly sit around brainstorming strategies they can use to try to keep not just keep from losing that 40% they have left, but how to get that 60% back. They sit around and they brainstorm all day how they're going to do this. And so please pray for our president and his brave team. Because like I've been saying, we're at the indictment stage now. It took them about 10 months to get here, but we're at the stage where the indictments are happening, and we're going to see some amazing things over the next couple weeks. I'm pretty sure, because Cass goes right on TV, sits there and says, "Yeah, there are more indictments coming. This is just the beginning." And I know a lot of social media influencers over the last 10 months have been relentlessly attacking Cass and Dan and Pam and all these other people on Trump's team because this wasn't going fast enough. My response to that is Trump will move when he's ready. And it doesn't matter how many social media pressure campaigns you launch. It doesn't really matter what your artificial timetable is. You being an outsider who doesn't know shit and doesn't understand shit about what's really going on. Your artificial timetables do not matter. Okay. And Trump, like any good general in a silent war, who is fight when you understand what it is that he's fighting and what it is that he's trying to completely free this American affiliate from. When you come to understand that, you will understand the amazing complexity of this and how many moving parts there are to it, and why most dumbasses on social media that have been screaming for years to Trump to do this or that thing right now. It may make for good clickbait. It may get attention, but when it comes to actually fighting this war, it's in control of people who are not emotional, who do not make snap judgments. They cannot be rushed into a movement in this war, taking an action. They're going to carefully marshal their forces. They're going to lay the ground. They're going to prepare the ground. They will move when it is time. And if you're somebody who struggles to understand that and accept it, well, that's okay. It doesn't change anything that you don't accept it or that you struggle to accept it. Trump will not move before the time. He won't. So when I see him discussing some things that he's planning to do, the new city that he's planning to go into to stop the crime, I see him discussing taking out Hamas if they don't get their shit together and stop these attacks. And if he doesn't talk, whatever it is he's talking about right now on my TV, everybody wants him to do something right now. Everybody's got an agenda that they would like to see. And in their head, they have a timeline by which Trump must have this agenda accomplished. And that's a mental confusion of thought, because if you've been watching what's been unfolding for the last 10 years, but you still can't understand how intelligent Trump is and how the brash alpha male swagger thing, the persona he's adopted, is an act. You're still telling yourself he can be browbeat or have a social media pressure campaign, and people can exert pressure on him and rush him into doing something. Okay, if you're still telling yourself that 10 years after he came down that escalator, you've been watching what's been happening with him and what he's been getting done. Okay, you're an idiot. And, you need to feel really bad about your level of intelligence and work to improve it, because Donald Trump is not going to be rushed into anything. I've talked before about how when he came down that golden escalator, I guarantee you Barack Obama and all those other people were laughing their asses off at him. Obama was looking at Trump going, "Oh, buddy, you have no idea what you're taking on. You don't have the first clue." And they believe the public persona, brash, egotistical, swaggering alpha male, real estate billionaire, failed at a bunch of different business ventures, walked in the room like he has the world's biggest swinging dick. Oh, it's going to be so easy to destroy this guy. We'll just bait him and get him to make emotional, rash decisions, and he'll destroy himself. No problem. I guarantee you they were telling themselves this 10 years ago. Maybe as late as 2018, 2019, they were still telling themselves that. Well, it hasn't happened yet, but we all know Trump's pretty much a clueless dumbass. He's easily goaded and pressured by people into making strategic mistakes and making rash emotional decisions. It will happen sooner or later. Here we are in year 10. I'm still watching social media influencers and MAGA celebrity podcasters selling this amazing fiction that Donald J. Trump is a dumbass that's controlled by his own staff. Yes, yes, even at this point, Susie Wiles or whoever, Trump gets out of bed. Susie Wiles immediately grabs him and spins him around in a circle a couple times and then points him where she wants him to go. There are people out there that will spend all fucking day telling you this. Donald Trump, the dumbass, easily controlled, misled, bamboozled by his own staff who hide shit from him. Because obviously there's no other explanation besides the fact that he's being manipulated by his own staff, manipulated and controlled. Because he won't do what I want him to do when I want him to do it. Obviously somebody is controlling him. Yes, even today, there are people out there with million followers that have successful podcasts, and they sit around and they spin scenarios like this shit all day long. Yes, absolutely. That's still going on. No, I'm not saying it's easier for them to do that than it used to be. It's getting harder for them to sell this shit to the audience. But they haven't stopped. I still see them doing it. Going across my feed. Well, gosh, Trump should have done this already. Damn you, Susie Wiles. Damn you. I've had to deal for a long time with people who do not have an accurate view of this man because their minds, they spend all day listening to certain people that fill their heads with mush, fill their heads with illusions. They can't clearly see this guy even after 10 years. They're still buying, but Jared Kushner comes back into the forefront. I was explaining to people who Donald Trump's most trusted advisor was back in 2017, 2018. Remember, if you've been following me that long, you know I was explaining to them, as I was explaining to people who it was that was seeding the media. Hey, whether this was part of a cover story for Jared while he got important shit done, I don't know. Could be. It's possible. But while Jared Kushner was setting up the Abraham Accords and he's doing all kinds of really important diplomatic stuff while completely bypassing the deep state-owned State Department and the diplomatic class, completely bypassing it to get shit done. All kinds of stories were being seeded through the media about what a traitor Jared and Ivanka really were. They're stabbing the old man in the back. Donald Trump needs to get rid of both of them, and quickly. Okay, I was telling people back in go back and look, 2017. This is bullshit. Now, if it was a cover story, great. It could be. I know who it was. I'll say it was Bannon. There's a lot of shit that goes on the surface. I admit, maybe it was a cover story. But Bannon plays up the idea that he's Trump's Svengali during the 2015-2016 election cycle. He plays up the idea that he's the Trump mastermind. Like George W. Bush had called, Donald Trump has Steve Bannon. And I have a theory it was Bannon himself using his media assets to spread that story that he was Trump's Svengali. Trump didn't really appreciate that, but look, Bannon was a valuable ally, so he didn't protest too much. And then Trump wins the election, and they go in the White House, and immediately after Trump and Jared and Ivanka and Bannon are in the White House together. Now, I happen to know who Trump's most trusted advisor is, and it's not Steve Bannon. Immediately after that happens, a whole slew of stories start coming out in the media about how Donald Trump should not be trusting Jared Kushner for shit. You should possibly start listening to somebody like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon's right there. Why not make Steve Bannon your most trusted advisor? Not that Jewish kid married to your daughter. Why not take that media narrative and actually make Steve Bannon your seven guy, your most trusted advisor, and replace this other guy, your son-in-law? So I'm watching this shit unfold back in 2017, 2018. I mean, it didn't last long in 2017 because we're all aware Steve Bannon got his ass tossed out of the White House by July. By July or August, Bannon is fired. He leaves the White House and goes straight to the Alabama Senate race and starts. He gives a series of interviews where he swears eternal vengeance on Trump and the Trump family. Yeah, this is 2017. I know most of you don't remember this. I know most of you have forgotten what Stephen Bannon was doing back in late 2017 and into 2018. Don't remember, but I do. So Jared Kushner was a traitor. Jared and Ivanka both. And the old man, being a dumbass, being blind by for family loyalty or whatever, could not see it. And so the media has having these stories seeded all over. I'm not talking about just fake news media. I mean conservative MAGA media, alternative media. It's being seeded with stories. That damn traitor, Jared Kushner. That evil witch, Ivanka. Why can't Trump see what they're doing? Why? And then Bannon doesn't end up becoming Trump's seven guy. He doesn't end up becoming Trump's most trusted advisor. Let me tell you what I think happened. Assuming that, like I said, this whole thing isn't a cover story to give Jared cover while he was doing important diplomatic shit out of sight. Let's assume it's real. I could see Donald Trump. Donald Trump's not stupid. He calls Bannon out and says, "Hey, Bannon, you need to stop this shit, okay? I am not getting rid of Jared. Stop spreading this anonymously sourced bullshit about my own daughter and my son-in-law being traitors. I see what you're doing. Stop!" Bannon didn't stop. Oh, well. I mean, this is what I believed before the Abraham Accords came out, and now I have to wonder if this whole thing was a cover story. Could be. But I thought for a couple of years that Trump warned Bannon to stop this shit, and Bannon didn't stop it. He kept seeding stories about Jared and Ivanka in the media, and Trump threw his ass out of the White House. And so Bannon goes and does these series of interviews where he swears eternal vengeance. He sits down and says, "Let me tell you the truth about Trump and his whole rotten family." And he gives a series of interviews from late 2017 into 2018. He goes down there and gets involved in the Alabama Senate race, deliberately running his own candidate, Judge Roy Moore, versus Trump's guy, and basically ends up handing that Senate seat to Doug Jones, who ends up being the deciding vote to allow no name to do that thumbs down moment to save Obamacare. In 2018. Yep. Uh-huh. But Jared Kushner is coming out now. It turns out he's played a key role in what's going on in the Middle East right now, just like he's always been ever since Trump's first term. He's Trump's key trusted advisor and diplomatic envoy. This is how Trump gets around the entire freaking diplomatic corps. International jet set diplomat set that's owned lock, stock, and barrel by the shadow government. This is how he gets around them. He uses Jared Kushner and people like Rick Grenell. That's how he gets around these assholes. So Trump brings out Jared Kushner to do a victory lap after he got this done. And I see people that still haven't learned anything since 2017. Oh God, he brought out the Jew trader that's married to his daughter. He still doesn't understand what a snake that guy is. Talk about not being able to update your software. Update your software already. Your programming needs a little tweak there, buddy. But I understand. Trump the dumbass sort of narratives will never go away. They're too profitable. They're too attention grabbing. And too many people out there clickbaiting on it. They rely on it. They need it. And want to pretend that they have key sources in Trump's inner circle. And it's all chaos all the time. You notice this? Oh man, when will you find out about the latest chaos going on inside the Trump inner circle? Sergio Gore, Susie Wiles, or Carolyn Levitt or whatever, or Stephen Miller, in open, angry warfare with this other person. My cool anonymous sources inside the Trump camp are telling me this. There are people out there that sit around and tell you this shit all day long. Yeah. Eventually, I think most people are going to see through it. But enough people, enough newbies, people who just joined the Trump camp and they don't know any better and they don't know what's been going on. They hear something like this and they're curious about why Trump hasn't done something yet. And so they start thinking, wow, could be Susie Wiles is hiding some shit from Trump. Could be. And so that's why there will always be some size of an audience for this type of thing. There'll always be people, open to the idea. Trump's a dumbass. Trump's trying his best. But goddamn, do they hide a lot of stuff from him that he doesn't know about? Look, he's the social media president. He and Dan Scavino, what the hell? Do you think Dan Scavino and Susie Wiles are hiding shit from the social media president? That's why on one level, one intellectual level now, I can never quite bring myself to believe that people are falling for this shit. They're hiding this from Trump. Doesn't have a clue about it. That's the hook. There's a lot of people out there. They do social media 24/7. They're looking for that narrative that's gonna be their hook. It's gonna get them 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 views. That's the hook. Oh, look, they're hiding this from Trump again. They're hiding something from Trump. He doesn't know a thing about it. And I'm hearing that there are people inside his inner circle desperately trying to get this information to him, while the other half of his inner circle is desperately trying to hide it from him. The frickin' social media president, who never goes anywhere without Dan Scavino. They're hiding stuff from him. Sure. Sure, John. Sure, they're hiding stuff from it. But people are gonna do what works. They're, they're gonna do what works. And believe you me, spinning scenarios like this, if you're after clicks and you're after views, yeah, it works. You're making shit up, but it will work. I'm watching him take questions while I've been streaming, and I'm looking over here to my left. That was I'm looking. It looks as if I'm looking to the right on camera because the camera's facing me. I'm looking to my left. Trump has been taking questions at the White House from reporters for the last hour now. This is not a cloistered president who's living in a freaking shelf somewhere where he's carefully stage managed by his own staff. Stop listening to dumb ass social media influencers trying to clickbait you. Or at least if you're going to continue listening to them, I'm not advocating censorship or anything. But if you're going to continue to listen to these people, at least be aware of what they're doing. The narrative they're selling to you is absolutely and completely irrational and absurd. He's taking reporters' questions for an hour. They can ask him anything, and they do. They do ask him anything. That's these marathon question and answer sessions that he does almost literally every day now, which is amazing after 4 years of Biden being carefully stage managed to the point that he's got reporters' pictures and questions on a note card. And he comes out for a brief Q&A that lasts about 10 minutes and then he leaves. This guy will sit there and take questions. I've seen him do 2.5 hour sessions. Sometimes multiple sessions a day with the press, taking the questions. He is literally drowning them in unprecedented access, okay? What the fuck are you even talking about hiding shit from him? What the hell are you even talking about? He's out there every day taking the questions. He's out there every day giving interviews. He's about the furthest thing from a cloistered, closed off, stage managed president that is possible. Stop listening to people who are fucking with you to make money, okay? And to stir controversy and to create division within the MAGA base by telling you, the reason Trump hasn't done what I want, what you and I want him to do, the reason he hasn't done that yet is because he's cloistered and he's hidden and he's carefully stage managed and his own team of hiding shit from it. Okay. I understand there's a sizable chunk of alternative media that spends all day spinning these scenarios to create news, to try to create news, to try to create interest in their podcast. Okay. You ever notice that I don't talk about my secret inside sources inside the Trump camp? You notice I never do that. Some people think that means, well, you're a second-rate journalist then. You don't have any sources. Well, listen, when you're intelligent enough to understand how the world actually works, and you'll be able to see about 80% of people who tell you they have anonymous sources inside someplace, whether it's Trump's camp, the FBI, State Department, the governor's mass, or whatever, they're messing with you. They're making it up. They're lying. They can't even get basic facts right. Okay? I'm always honest about the fact I don't have people inside Trump's inner circle telling me what's going on. But I tell you what, I know enough about how things work. I can spot 80% of the times that these people are claiming they have a cool insight. So it's telling them something, they can't even get basic facts right. And you can tell they're making this up. They're making it up. It doesn't fit what you see anyway. I mean, how could you take seriously any podcaster or social media influencer like Laura Loomer or Steve Bannon or Jack Posobiec, any of these other people, how could you ever take them seriously if you've actually watched this president and what he's been doing for the last 10 months? Marathon question and answer sessions. Okay. Completely in charge of himself, completely in charge of the room. And these people are going to tell you he's a stage managed, cloistered president that they're hiding shit from. If you can't figure out how you're being played, okay, that's your fault now. In a way, if these people are going to keep making shit up because that's all, they don't do it all the time. They do have some good stuff. Don't get me wrong. Loomer, Bannon, Posobiec, they do some good things. But when they start going off on the spiel about how cloistered and secluded and protected and shielded and stage managed by his own staff, Donald Trump is, and so they're hiding stuff from him, and that's why he hasn't done certain things yet. Okay, and they're trying to, there's cool inside sources are telling them this. The war and chaos inside the Trump camp. And they start spinning one of these scenarios to you. They do that because it works. They do that because it gets them the attention they want. They do that because it gets them the money they're seeking. Okay. It works, and they'll always be doing that. But for God's sake, could you at least wake up a little bit and realize what they're doing when they start spinning one of these tales to you about how stage managed and cloistered Trump is and how his staff spins them around and points them which way to go every day, and they're hiding all kinds of information from him. The social media president with Dan Scavino at his side. They're hiding all this stuff from him. Sure, John. I see it every day. It gets tiresome. I'm hoping by the time we get to year 3 of this second Trump term, that subset of the MAGA, America First, alternative media that's spinning absurd bullshit stories like this has shrunk to the point that I don't have to see it every goddamn day. And the only reason it gets on my feed is that it's popular enough and enough people fall for it. It gets constantly spread through my social media, on Truth Social, Telegram, and X.com. I end up seeing it every day because enough people are still falling for this. So I think he's been going for about an hour and 40 minutes. He may be a 2-hour marathon here. Because I think Trump was speaking when I started, and my timer on this live broadcast, and 1,400 of you are now watching. I thank each and every one of you for doing that, making me part of your Monday morning. Okay. I'm watching, he was on the TV already talking when I started an hour 48 minutes ago. So this is like another one of those marathon statements. Now, he's not taking your questions the whole time. I understand that. I think the first 30 minutes, he's making statements, and he's making a statement and getting off his chest when the Australian president is there, and they're going to discuss a few things. But about an hour ago, I believe it was an hour ago, maybe over an hour ago, an hour 20 minutes ago, they opened it up for questions. He's been sitting there taking the questions for an hour 20 minutes. Okay, and he just ended it. So it was about an hour 25 minutes. Donald Trump and Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth is there, and they were all taking questions. And I'm telling you, this is an unprecedented level of access to a White House. Every cabinet meeting is televised. Trump will come out and spend at least an hour every day, even when he's on Air Force One, which is usually after getting shit done, the president will be tired. He'll just go lie down and sleep till they land, and he gets ready for whatever's coming that day. Trump will come out and talk to the press for half an hour on Air Force One. I mean, if you if you've been covering American politics and American presidents, I wasn't covering it as a reporter until about 2012, but I've been intimately following American politics since 1988, which I consider the year of my political awakening in Bible College, a small Bible college in Bloomington, Minnesota in 1988. You've been following American politics since then. You realize what an unprecedented level of access Donald Trump is giving the media. And the reason he's doing that is he's making it very hard for them to do that cut and paste editing shit that they've been doing. They did to him in that first term. And they've done to every political leader that they don't like, to sell narratives, to sell fake narratives, fake news narratives. When you give them unprecedented access, and it's live on TV, and the public is now engaged and watching, you don't get to do that clever video editing shit anymore. You don't get to do that. And if it's live on TV and the video's there, and people can always clip the video, it's going out on a live feed on YouTube, Rumble. All these events are carried live. The video's out there. No matter how long he stands there and takes questions, or what questions he takes, and what answers he gives, it's all there. How you gonna do what CBS News used to do when he sat down for an exclusive interview, and they're the only ones that had the tape? They could do all kinds of fucking shit with the tape, with the video, edit it however they wanted it. They don't get to do that anymore. Okay, let me amend that. They tried this several times. They got their asses sued. Ended up having to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. And Trump still has open cases right now against fake news media that tried that clever editing shit. But aside from that, he's giving them unprecedented access. He's literally drowning them in it, and they can't selectively edit what he's doing. I can't come out and chop up this hour. It was almost an hour and a half long. This hour and a half long question and answer session. What success could they possibly have chopping up a couple of answers that he gave and assembling it into a fake narrative and releasing it? How far would they get with that? When Trump's already made CBS, and he's going to get the Wall Street Journal, he's going to get CNN to cough up millions and millions of dollars for trying that editing shit. Okay, so it's like we're in a new golden age with the media, man. He's robbing them of their ability to try to shape the national narrative about his presidency. They're still trying to do it. They're still trying to lie about it, what he's doing. It's a tough road to hoe now. Tough road to hoe. He's making it tougher for them every day. And that press conference he just did, perfect example. Because it's carried live on TV. Everybody knows what he said. Everybody heard what he said. There are millions of people watching. If the CBS Evening News tries to come out and do a 2-minute report on that meeting today, and they'll try some fucking shit with some editing, they know the White House is watching. They know millions of podcasters, thousands of podcasters are watching. What they tried to do is going to be counter videos that will go viral, and it'll be exposed, and it won't go anywhere, and their narrative won't launch. It used to be so much easier for them to launch a narrative. This is the power Trump is taking away from them with this unprecedented access, and the fact that we now have a court system. Some people haven't been paying attention to this. We have a court system now where you can win hundreds of millions of dollars, either forcing settlements or winning lawsuits for defamation. And that's a beautiful thing. Right now, Trump's got, right now, he's already settled several with CBS and CNN, I think. He still has another active case with CNN and some other people. And the Wall Street Journal, yeah, it's got an active case against the Wall Street Journal for that stupid Epstein birthday letter bullshit that they tried. Well, I'm pretty sure the Wall Street Journal is going to settle that one before it goes to trial. I mean, they've got no case. They've got no case. They're going to end up handing Donald Trump a lot of their money. Okay. And so this is the age that we're living in now, where even as certain dumbass podcasters out there are trying to sell you this idea, they're hearing from their cool inside sources, that Donald Trump's inner circle is in complete chaos, and one half of the inner circle is hiding this shit from him, and then the other half is trying to tell him about it. Okay, and they're spinning scenarios like this. The other side of this is that Trump is drowning the fake news media, unprecedented access. He's the exact opposite of a sheltered, cloistered presidential candidate who's being easily manipulated and bamboozled by his own staff. But like I said, I don't expect people peddling scenarios like this to ever go away. There will always be an audience of some size for that kind of thing. But you don't need to do that. There's enough interesting, real stuff going on. Why would you feel like you had to make shit up from anonymous sources about chaos inside the Trump inner circle? Why would you do that? Well, that'll be the subject for another broadcast at a later date. I'm going to go ahead to start closing this now. I've got 5 minutes left. I just want to thank everybody for watching. I know it's Monday morning. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of things you could be doing right now. You can be taking a walk. You can be watching a TV show. You could be reading a book. But you watch me babble for the last hour, 56 minutes. All 1,400, almost 1,500 of you. Okay, remember, I have a Substack. I'm going to be really busy with that Substack. The indictments are happening now. I believe Comey, as far as the Russiagate thing goes, Comey is going to lead to other people that were involved in that massive criminal joint venture to create a fake Russia collusion hoax for the Donald Trump campaign. That a hoax that was then used to try to undermine and sabotage his presidency. I believe that is going somewhere, and we will see other indictments. Andy McCabe is just sitting there. Yeah, Andy McCabe is just sitting there. John Brennan is just sitting there. James Clapper. They're all just sitting there. Susan Rice. So I'm just sitting there. I really can't wait to see who the next. I believe Kash Patel. You know, I know you have a lot of social media influencers, like the people I've been discussing for the last 30 minutes. They're out there telling me Kash Patel ain't doing shit. Okay, now I believe Kash Patel. He said that this is just the beginning. There's more indictments coming. I believe him. Okay, and I know who's sitting out there. Peter Strzok is just sitting out there. Joe Pienka. It's just sitting out there somewhere. Okay, and I've been saying for some time now, you'll know that the Spygate investigation is going somewhere, and the Spygate indictments are going somewhere. If old Joe Pienka, the original Invisible Man, suddenly loses all of his amazing powers to stay invisible. That's when you'll know that this is moving forward. So we'll see what happens. Thank you all for watching. I want to thank my brother for moderating. I'll be back on Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. and we'll sit down and we'll discuss about what an amazing time this is, how great it is to be alive at the launch of the new American Golden Age. God bless.